Throughout Sumeru, we've heard on several occasions that the traveller should not associate themselves with Alhaitham. Some claim he is unpredictable, while others say flat out that he's just dangerous, but through most of Sumeru's storyline, we aren't really told why. Sure, he does appear rather odd at times and even suspicious, with his penchant for disappearing and reappearing at critical moments that seem beneficial for him. But because of the urgent need to rescue the Dendro Archon, topple the sages, and rectify the issues with the Immortal, we've never really questioned it. With the dust settled though and his lore being revealed, we now kinda know why people are wary of him. And it's not what you might originally think. Before we get into that, if you want to see more Genshin Impact content, do consider subscribing to the channel. Alhaitham comes from a family of accomplished scholars. His father was a well-known Haravatat mentor, his mother a renowned researcher in the Vahumana Darshan, and his grandmother a Ksharewar scholar. They have long been involved as scholars for the academia, and thus his family are quite well known within those circles. Unfortunately though, his parents died when he was very young in an accident. It happened early enough in his life that he doesn't really remember them and was instead brought up by his grandmother. Even from a very young age, Alhaitham was talented in academics and at the behest of his grandmother started school far earlier than most others. However, he found most of his peers uninteresting and would rather study by himself. Why he believed this wasn't just because he was smarter than most, but found the way others studied or obtained knowledge to be lacking. Whether you agree with it or not, knowledge gained through schooling is largely a process of being told what to memorize and memorizing said fact, which for most people is an acceptable way to learn. Alhaitham, however, felt that this was not something that interested him, as how could he know if what he was being told was correct? Maybe it was wrong, and if he didn't know what he didn't know, how could he question it? So to Alhaitham, education meant to read something, break it down, and question it, to scrutinize any fact or information to its logical end. This is largely why he ended up being homeschooled or self-taught, as most educators wouldn't have the time to explain these things in detail anyways. Luckily for him, there was a wealth of knowledge afforded to him due to his family's penchant for academics. Unlike others, Alhaitham also actually preferred gaining knowledge through books compared to the Akasha Terminal, which I'll touch on a bit later. Eventually, he would apply for the academia and, to nobody's surprise, scored highly in the Haravatat Darshan exams and being almost immediately admitted as a scholar. As someone who is largely self-taught, the rules and processes of the academia is something Alhaitham largely ignores. He really only cares about the things he is interested in and finding the ultimate truth behind it. He seems rather apathetic to any process or tradition the academia might adhere to. This approach largely makes him stand out and different from the other scholars. Now, why would most others find this way of thinking unusual or even feel threatened by it? Surely the pursuit of knowledge shouldn't be restricted by such benign considerations. Well, as I mentioned earlier, Alhaitham prefers to gain knowledge through books rather than the Akasha Terminal. The reason he prefers them is because a book is largely unable to change its contents. What you read is what you get, and if you're not the type to question its contents, you will forever believe something that is wrong. I suppose it's the same with the terminal, but it's the spirit of questioning things that I'm bringing up here, as most in Sumeru are taught to take the terminal's knowledge as truth and gospel. Using books as a medium of study forces one to be inquisitive regarding its content, and in his own words, it's like dancing with potential misinformation. Because he was mostly self-taught in his younger days, this has built a mindset of constantly analyzing and questioning things around him. Most in Sumeru are actually the opposite, however. Reading something from a book which might turn out to be wrong isn't desirable and is seen as a waste of time, and why most scholars prefer the Akasha Terminal. They prefer gaining knowledge that they know to be true and will believe what they are told by the terminal. To question this would be to also question the wisdom of the Archon and even the sages, which is a big no-no, and is what lends to this culture of simply accepting. After all, no scholar exists that will want to question hundreds of years of study and research in fear of being ostracized and losing their post. This stark contrast in the way one studies and views knowledge is why those in the academia differ from Alhaitham. They just think differently, or rather, they are trained to. This is largely why most in the academia find him threatening, as he presents a completely different way to obtain knowledge. One built on personal vigor and curiosity, and not strict adherence to scripture or the status quo. The most worrying part is not only the idea itself, but the fact that despite being different and going against the status quo, Alhaitham is a largely successful scholar. He has accomplished much in his time, from multiple successful research projects to being appointed as the scribe of the academia. And this flies in the face of those who have done it the traditional way, making them likely to despise him even more. But what about those like Tainari or Dori who aren't academia scholars? Why would they have the traveler be wary of him? Well, their concern is more related to his personality. You see, Alhaitham is a straightforward, rational thinker. He values choices and decisions made from information and evidence, with emotion and other such factors not worthy of consideration. It's not that he doesn't understand them, but rather feels they are too unpredictable. This is why someone like Tainari would warn against relying too much on Alhaitham, as if the facts change, so would Alhaitham's decisions. While Alhaitham does largely come through in the rescue of the Dendro Archon, he will not hesitate to do something he feels is right, regardless of any emotional considerations. For example, he decided to deceive the traveler in regards to the whole knowledge capsule incident, not because he doesn't trust the traveler, but because he thought it was the necessary steps for him to achieve his goals. This is largely why most others are wary of him, because he makes decisions based on facts, and discerning what he might be thinking is largely difficult, so trust is something difficult to build. In truth, however, there is no right or wrong way of learning or gaining knowledge, nor is his personality something attributed to being evil or something like that. This method is just what works for Alhaitham, and to his credit, has helped him numerous times. Being objective and not emotional allowed him to come up with the best plan for rescuing the Archon. While he might appear suspicious and always seems to have an ulterior motive, which made even myself suspicious of him throughout the entire story, thinking when he would betray the traveler, the truth of the matter is that he is just a straightforward logical thinker who makes decisions based on facts. He doesn't really have any lofty goals or high-reaching ambitions, and even when granted a vision, only really saw it as a tool. His straightforward and low-profile attitude has made many think he is some mastermind playing 4D chess, when in truth, he just wants to live a simple life. A wish his grandmother had wanted for him before she passed on. That does it for this video though. If you enjoyed it, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. As usual, have a nice day.